introduction of where I'm going. And tomorrow and wrapping up on Sunday morning, I'll try to dig deeper in a lot of the different areas. So I'm going to try to not keep you too long. I figured 10:30, something like that would be all right. It's when Harlan starts snoring, that's usually my cue to. You started so soon. As I looked over the material that Tom had sent, it seemed to me that First Church has developed an impressive set of core values to guide your ministry in the future. And it would be hard to find fault with any of them or with all of them together. I've been through the process of developing core value lists and mission statements with numerous churches over the years. And I recognize the importance of doing the hard work so you can say out loud what you believe the church to be and where you'll focus your ministry, because no church can be all things to all people in all places. But one pitfall seems to occur when churches nail up the list, and that's all that happens. And I've seen list after list gather dust. So the hard part is designing and redesigning the ministries that support and implement the desired values. Now, I have no information on where FUMCO is on this particular path, but the implementation of core values requires asking questions of every area of ministry, asking primarily the question of, in what way does this program or activity implement our values? Evaluation of that, the answers to that question is difficult, because it takes great courage for a church to say, we need to stop doing this and begin doing that. The tendency, more commonly, is that once something is started, it tends to either succeed or go on to a slow death of attrition and interest. Now, it's useful for effective ministry to ask a number of questions. The first one is, how do we welcome people? And what is the follow-up? How do people get included? How do we build bridges for new people to attain the friendship and roles in their ministry such as we've had? An interesting area of research that one of my consultants and a fellow that you're acquainted with, some of you are acquainted with, lead consultants, John Savage, who was your consultant here in a transition lately, did some basic research, and he came up with these things. He wondered why people became inactive and why they became and stayed active. Very simple kinds of questions. And he found out that there were three things related to people who become active and stay active. The first is that they have two or more friends in the church. The second is that they have a relationship with a pastor that feels accessible and helpful should they need it. And the third is that they are a member of one or more small groups. Now, we also found that if any one of these factors is missing, it won't be long before they become inactive. It's kind of like a three-legged stool. You can still sit on it precariously with two legs, but after a while you get tired of that and it falls over. The second thing that I think we need to look at is that Methodism has a long culture of rituals in worship that may be really strange or questionable for new participants. For example, our repetition of the Apostles' or Nicene creeds. These creeds arose from theological arguments in the 3rd and 4th centuries about the nature of God and the substance of Jesus. So how do we interpret the way we worship to those without a Christian background or a Methodist history? We'll talk more about that particular division around the creeds in a later session. You've stated in your written work that you have a desire to be caring, and you have, in my experience, always had that. But how do we identify who needs what and match the need with the right resources at the right time? You also said in your planning documents that you desire growth. So I would say, are the processes for growth clear? And are they matched to the stages of faith for those desiring growth? And we'll talk a little bit about the stages of faith and that development in tomorrow morning. You also said that you identified giving as a core value. We each have different gifts. So how do different potential gifts get identified? And how do individuals find channels for those gifts? You can begin to see that the challenge ahead requires a fair amount of diligence and work to find answers to these questions in order to have a cohesive plan of ministry that moves all of the energy of the congregation in a productive direction. Peace with justice was a commonly mentioned proclamation. What are the structures for addressing injustice? Since we do not have the resources to change the world, what resources do we have? And where do the structure, design, strategy, and pathways to nudge an area of injustice toward just outcomes exist? Courageous leadership was another phrase that you used. And it's a shared hope for the church at large. But how is courage focused? How are those who act with courage supported? How do those who have a dream of just action get trained to make their ministry impactful and effective? Last of all, how do we know at any given moment how we're doing to be congruent with our stated core values? How do we know what to start, what to stop, and what to change? Who monitors this process and convenes evaluation and modification sessions for ministries? Now, in the 2018 Lenten curriculum that you used, it includes numerous examples of people engaging specific needs and responding with generosity. These examples of ministry and faithful living are to be acknowledged and lifted as possible considerations for others. I would hope in the years ahead that it would be possible to publish a large volume of similar acts in the extension of First Church here. But this weekend, I want to support what is already happening, suggest other issues and needs, and provide food for the journey. In particular, I hope to address how we can get our heads and hearts together. What do we need to consider to have a theology that speaks to the modern, young, intellectual, technical culture who are, to a large extent, writing off the church as a museum? And to speak to those of all generations whose theology no longer speaks to the world that is now focused on quantum mechanics and relativity. And second, how do we come to an understanding of creation that can lead us to preserving it and not destroying it? Fourth, how is community created? What is the cornerstone on which the sacred can live within us and among us? And fourth, can we move from part-time considerations and acts of goodness to lives of consistent authenticity? Now, this is a journey that I've engaged for most of my life. It's not yet finished. Yeah, it's not finished. I hope you will travel with me, with heart and mind, as we seek lives of authenticity and congruence in the larger dimensions of truth. Now, let me stop just there for a couple of minutes for questions, and then I want to dig into some of this a little bit and set the stage for tomorrow. Any reactions to what I've said so far? Any questions? Harlan?
You talked about the relationship. Well, I think number 2 is a close relationship with the minister of the church. And it's been my experience, ability to attract people and keep them interested is really lacking. And what is being done in terms of liturgy, teaching, and the ability of people to speak and speak with